Tell me in the chat, what sort of questions do you think is going to be asked today? What sort of questions do you think Keith is going to, aka Keir Starmer, for those that don't understand the meme, what questions is he going to be asking today? I have a funny feeling Keith is going to ask questions about sending kids back to school, because he seems to have a throbbing boner for sending kids back into dangerous situations. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I think it's going to be 1, schools. 2, schools. Then he's going to start bitching about Boris lying, and then it's just going to turn into like 4, 5, 6, 7. There's just going to be a back and forth with Keith saying, but you don't do this thing, and Boris is going, well, you voted for it, man. Yeah. I don't know why. I can normally like try and burst out a usual. Man, that sounded way more Scottish than usual. I can usually burst out a Keir Starmer impression, you know. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what happened. Yeah, if I move about more than usual today, what the hell did I hold the camera? Oh, PMQS has started. Shit. Out of nowhere, and we're into Prime Minister's questions.
I shall have further such meetings later today.
Let's head to the northwest with Durrick. Twig, Durrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Halton Council ran out of funding for discretionary COVID isolation payments despite a strict criteria for eligibility. Just 171 constituents have been helped. The council have applied for further funding, but what the government have offered will not be enough.
Interesting. I thought this was just engagement.
Failed to qualify for help due to the criteria set by his government. Will the Prime Minister look again at this and bring forward a properly funded scheme so that no constituent is in a position where they cannot afford to isolate? We need this to happen if we are to continue to drive down COVID-19 infections.
Okay, so that was a surprise question. I thought Derek was just going to be asking what the Prime Minister is going to be doing today. It turned out he asked a question about the excluded. What is the Prime Minister going to say to this?
Prime Minister.
I thank him, and I pay tribute to the work of everybody on Halton Council for everything that they've been doing throughout this pandemic. I know it's been very tough on council officials, indeed on everybody else. Central government's put in another £4.3 billion to help councils throughout the pandemic. We will continue to support our local authorities, and he'll be hearing more from the Chancellor next week.
Okay, so he gave no answer to that. He just said that, oh yeah, we're giving money to councils. He asked a specific question about the excluded in the UK, people that aren't getting enough money to stay at home and they're having to go out and work during the pandemic. He gave no answer. He just said, councils. Twat.
Let's head across to Duncan Baker.
Duncan Baker next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the UK is to become the Saudi Arabia of wind power, then it is off my coast of North Norfolk that is surely the capital.
Tory as it gets.
An environmentally damaging connection method to the national grid is holding us back, and this was proven by the Vattenfall judicial review just last week. We need legal and regulatory reform now. Prime Minister, could this be a job for the new Task Force for Innovation and Regulatory Reform to help us implement the...
Oh, so there we go. Here's the fucking kicker. This is a Fed question from Boris, which, I mean, the comment about making the UK into the Saudi Arabia of fucking anything blew me away. Because if the last thing the UK wants to ever be like it is Saudi Arabia, fuck that shit. They're a bunch of dictators that do really nasty things to their peoples. No, just no. And then obviously the kicker of this question is just like, it was actually a question about a task force. So no, we know that this is just Boris's question. He wants to talk about his new little innovation task force, the Bell End.
Much needed offshore transmission network and meet our net zero targets.
Net zero, fuck you.
Yes, indeed, and I congratulate my honourable friend on his campaign to make his constituency.
Of course you do. You give him the question. You
possibly the Jeddah of offshore wind.
See, he just repeated it, right? He just repeated he wanted to make it the Jeddah of wind power. That was his fucking question. Only an idiot like him would think that making the UK into anything like the Saudi state would be a good thing.
He's at the issue of the transmission network review, and we're in the process of developing the necessary regulatory changes.
Developing necessary regularity changes, whatever that basically means is we're looking at ways to alter the law so we can do what we want. That's what that fucking means. And here we go. Roll up. It's time for Keith.
Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The principles behind the Prime Minister's recovery plan of caution and it must be irreversible are plainly right. One of the biggest threats to that is misinformation about.
I can't take this anymore, right? What the fuck? Oh yeah, I totally agree with it. What the Prime Minister says is absolutely right. This guy's a fucking joke, man. What a fucking joke.
About the risks of the deadly virus. For example, there have been people saying that COVID statistics appear to have been manipulated, that Monday's roadmap is based on dodgy assumptions and false modelling. Does the Prime Minister agree that these kinds of comments are irresponsible and undermine?
This is like... Sorry, did we just fall into some sort of weird time warp where Keir Starmer is now reading Boris Johnson's questions out? That read like Boris gave him that question. It's like, oh, how dare people say that government have been fudging stats? Sorry, but at the very start of the pandemic, I did an expose. I broke this down with hard facts that government were misleading people and they were manipulating numbers. This was fucking true. This is true.
Mr. Speaker, the
I can't believe that.
roadmap
Like,
that we've set out will, I believe,
I can't
set
believe
off on
that.
a cautious
I can't believe he
approach
asked
to
a
the
question that was just saying, "Oh, everyone should believe what the Prime Minister says." What the fuck is he doing?
For schools, April 12th for shops,
I don't think I've ever
Days
been
of
so
hospitality,
angry or
June
mentally
21st
broken watching this
for
shit.
everything in the data
What the
supporting all
fuck?
of that, Mr. Speaker, has been available to the House since I announced it on Monday.
What up, SK? You missed a
I think the Prime
fucking
Minister dodged
sitter
that
there.
question.
Jeez.
No doubt.
What
because
question?
All those comments came from his own MP.
There wasn't a question there. You just told him that, oh, do you agree with me that people shouldn't be calling your stats bullshit? How's that a question?
Some of the 60 or so members of the COVID recovery group.
I don't think I've
Perhaps
ever
the
been
Prime
so
Minister
angry
should
watching
have a
this, you
word
know.
with them. Another big threat.
I thought
another
that was a question.
threat to the recovery plan is that around 3
Oh, there we
in
go. He's
10
actually
people
challenging
who
now.
should be self-isolating aren't doing so. That's a huge gap in our defences, and the small changes on Monday won't fix it. That's why
Where's my
Labour
pen?
has called for the £500 self-isolation payment to be made available to everybody who needs it.
Wait,
Will the Prime Minister just fix this?
wait, everyone doesn't get that.
Mr. Speaker, he knows very well that those who are asked to self-isolate already have the £500 test and trace support payment, and I think he also knows, because he supported the roadmap on.
Now, sorry, that's bullshit because you only get that if you're in a certain condition. You got to be on benefits. If you're not getting benefits, you don't get that.
On Monday, that the he supports the fact the eligibility criteria
He supports.
are being extended
There we go. He's
to allow parents
2
and
questions in, and
guardians
Boris is telling
who,
him that
who
he
are
supports
staying
him.
off work,
The fuck is the point in this?
to receive a payment, provided they meet the criteria. And I think he's aware of that.
I think he's aware of that.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr.
3 out of 10
Speaker.
people who should be self-isolating aren't doing so. That matters to millions of people. And it matters
Sorry, if people are not self-isolating when they should do it, does that not mean they're breaking the law? Are they not breaking the law? Like,
as if we're going to get the virus under control. The chair of
like I
Test and
said in
Trace
the last
said that people
potpourri
are
stream,
scared to come
we're
forward
fucked.
for a COVID test.
England's fuck should have
Because
said
they can't
June
afford
is
to
going to be
isolate.
lockdown
That's
3,
chair of Test and
lockdown
Trace.
4,
Can't afford
lockdown
it.
fucking
The
whatever.
government's
You're going back.
biosecurity
You're going to be
centre
locked down by
said
June.
Unmet financial need was why
God.
some lower income areas are seeing stubbornly high infection rates. So why, after
Yeah,
all the
wait.
billions the government has thrown
Guarantee
around,
he is going to get
is
called
it
Keith
still
by Boris
people
one
in
week just for the
low-paid
little
jobs
laugh he'll get.
who are at the bottom of this
Boris will
government's
go there.
priorities?
He's just like that. Prime Minister.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, I think most people looking at what we've done throughout this pandemic, looking at the support, the
Yeah,
£280
SK,
billion
we are going to
package
have more
support,
lockdowns than Mortal
could
Kombat
see
games.
that it is,
Absolutely.
the poorest and the neediest in society, those on the lowest income, who have been the top of the government's priority.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you there. I've not had a penny of fucking help from this government, and I'm that people he just fucking spoke about. That guy's a fat fucking liar. End of
priorities.
discussion.
And that is quite right. And we will continue to act in that way, Mr. Speaker, and he will be hearing more about that next week from the Chancellor. In addition,
how about instead of telling the leader of the opposition stuff, you come to people that need the help and tell them what they need? You know what I mean? Is that too much to ask?
To the discretionary funding we've given.
Sorry, are we below being spoken to or something? Can people not be spoken to? Like, I don't understand this.
Councils to support those who need it most, including those, Mr. Speaker, who have to self-isolate.
You stop.
Mr. Speaker, here's the difference.
Well, the
If you
difference.
need
Here we go.
£500 to isolate, you're out of luck. If you've got the Health Secretary's WhatsApp, you get a £1 million contract.
Okay. Fair play on that. That was a good dig at Matt Hancock. But is he actually going to...
Now, I don't expect
Is he going to mention the unlawful nature, though? Is he fucked?
If I want that, I can read it on the front page of the Times.
That's actually... What he just did there is actually fucking disgusting. Yeah, you're right, SK. He did actually... He finally acknowledged that Matt Hancock has been being fishy with contracts, but the way he did it was he just made a joke out of it. He just used Matt Hancock's thing as he got caught with his hand in the tip jar again. Fucking little Matt, you little bad boy. He got caught, the cheeky little bugger. We caught him stealing Prime Minister's sandwiches. It's like, no, this is not a slap on the wrist, use it as a pun and move on moment. The fucker broke the law. He was giving £1 million contracts to his fucking neighbours. It's like, what the... This is the problem with the upper classes. They defend each other. They defend their own scams. They defend the bullshit that they all do.
For families
whilst we pay for it.
And for businesses.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, you cheeky little scamp.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know about you, but the budget is happening next week. It's
budget.
not a date that is concealed.
It's fucking hilarious. We're getting a budget after we've had like 10 budgets in the last year.
What to expect, but it's preposterous for
Why
him,
is he laughing?
Mr. Speaker, to talk about tax rises when he stood on a manifesto only a year ago, Mr. Speaker, or a little over a year ago, to put up taxes by the biggest amount in the history of this country. It is the Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, his Labour Council in Camden, that puts up taxes across the country. That is the way Labour...
Wait, so okay, right, Boris just said specifically that the Camden Council puts up taxes for everyone in the UK. That is nonsense. That is impossible. Camden Council did not charge people in the UK taxes. What a fucking joke. And like that, the thing is, like, the Labour Party were wanting to put more taxes on the rich, balance society. Now there's an easy get out for Keir here, just to say, well, that was Corbyn's plan. Yeah, it did sound personal.
Talk about tax rises.
Well, why did he just look? He just looked back at Corbyn. You want to talk about tax rises?
And he should, because this matters. Councils up and down the country are being forced to decide now whether to put council tax up. That's a £2 billion rise on families. I'm not blaming councils. They've been starved of funding for a decade. And Labour and Conservative councils are in the same position.
This topic is being used as a game of rhetorical tennis here.
His own constituency, his own council, Hillingdon, Conservative-run Hillingdon, is voting to increase council tax by 4.8%. Does the Prime Minister think that they're right to do that?
I wonder if this was the question he had lined up.
Council, in common with most Conservative
that seemed like an off-the-cuff sort of question.
Lower council taxes than Labour, up and down the country. He's completely wrong, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to correct him.
Well, sorry, I'm going to correct this fucking clown before he gets any further, because unlike Keir Starmer and unlike Boris Johnson, I have actually worked directly within local government finance. I have worked within a council. I had to operate the systems that created the bills. I had to run the accounts. I had to balance the books. I had to do reconciliations on council tax systems. So this is something I actually know a great deal about, which is council tax and how the council tax systems worked. The council taxes go up all the time. They're very rare. I've never heard of them go down, but they go up every year, all the time. Every year, councils vote to put it up by the amount that the government let them put them up. This has just happened. This has not got anything to do with COVID-19. It's not got anything to do with anything, and all councils are more or less independent. So it's like, when he's saying like making a mass, like what he's away to do just now is make this mass generalisation that all councils do this thing and it's all just depends on who runs the councils. It's all bullshit. Total bullshit. It doesn't matter what party runs a council or anything like that. They all happen the same, and it all happens in the same way it is. It's just there is no generalisation when it comes to councils other than they are all stressed when it comes to money. He has got no place to talk about council tax because he doesn't know about it.
The current Labour Mayor of London, who is putting up his council tax by 10%.
Yeah, the only reason they're talking about council taxes is because it's a rhetorical statement. Telling everyone that, oh, well, you're putting the taxes up 10% for someone. It's rhetorical nonsense. Like, one thing you've got to remember as well, it's like, he's just attacked Keir by saying, oh, there's a council in that area that's putting rates up by 10%. Now, you've got to look at that area. Like, is that a rich area? Like, does that area have the money? There's so many more questions you can ask per that you've got to look at. And then you've got the whole caveat that councils get their funding from various bigger groups. Like in Scotland, the funding is distributed and worked out by COSLA, right? Now, it doesn't matter. Like, a lot of the times, COSLA and stuff gets their money from in their directions from government. So you could get the situation where governments are being forced, like Labour-run councils are being forced to do stuff because decisions made at a government level have fucked them up at a council level. This is how it all fucking works, man. It's ridiculous.
Has been taken out of council budgets over the last 10 years.
But yeah, I do think it is a bit bullshitty. Like, it's pretty shit that they've been dragged into a topic on council taxes because the only thing that matters in council taxes is your own area's council tax. Nothing else fucking matters. It only matters what that one person is paying. So this argument, this is just rhetorical tennis. This is just like, oh, you've got a council that does 10%. Psh, you've got one at 11. Smash. Haha, you've got one at 12. It's just fucking stupid. It means absolutely nothing. It's just rhetorical.
Millions can't afford to self-isolate, and all the Prime Minister offices are returned to business as usual. Next week's budget is a chance to choose a different path.
Budget question.
To build a stronger future, to protect families, to give our key workers the pay rise they deserve, and to back British businesses by supporting 100,000 new startups. Will the Prime Minister do so?
Prime Minister.
Come on, Prime Minister, are you going to support something?
If you'll only wait till next week, I think you'll find that we'll do far more than that paltry agenda that he set out.
What agenda? What agenda did he set out? Like, fucking hell. And also, remember, hold him to this. He just said people are going to be helped next week. They're not. Spoilers. No one's going to be helped next week.
And I must say, Mr. Speaker, it is quite mystifying to see the way the right honourable gentleman weaves hither and yon like some sort of druidical rocking
Boris
stone,
Johnson is a fucking wanker.
One week
My
he
God,
claims
he's a wanker
that he
too.
supports the vaccination rollout. The next week he actually attacks the vaccine task force.
Oh, he just called Keir a fucking anti-vaxxer. Oh my God.
When they're spending money to try to reach hard-to-reach vaccine-resistant groups, and says that kind of spending can't be justified. One week he calls for us to go faster with rolling out vaccines, when he would have stayed in the European Medicines Agency, which would have made that rollout impossible, Mr. Speaker.
Terrible.
He vaccinates.
Just check him, he's laughing.
We vaccinate.
The thing is, like, this is the problem here, right? Keir Starmer is just laughing at this. He thinks this is just acceptable banter. Like, he's just like, oh, well, you got me there, Boris. It's like, sorry, mate. This is not a you got me situation. This is you being made to look inept.
This country forward on a one-way road to freedom, and I very much hope that his support, which has been so evanescent in the past, will genuinely prove irreversible this time, Mr. Speaker.
Boris, you fucking clown. He is your opposition. He is not meant to support you. Keir Starmer is not government. Keir Starmer is not the Tory party. Sure, they're both in the same sort of gentrified class, but no. What the fuck? This is so backwards. So, very quickly, before we move on, I'm just going to say that between Keir and Boris this week, it was a draw. They were both full of shit. Keir was more full of shit than usual. Boris was just in full-on bluster mode. It was a draw. Let's move on to the rest of these fucking clowns.
Let's head to Yorkshire with Andrea Jenkins. Andrea.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Intellect on full display here.
Will provide many of my constituents in Morley and Outwood with a vision of hope for the future that life will be set to return to a new normal before the end of June, and it'll allow us to celebrate the Great British Summer.
Great British Summer? What the hell is she talking about?
Actions that the government is taking to spot, prevent, and limit the damage of any future health emergencies, so that local economies in constituencies like mine have a sense of certainty that this will be their last.
Where even is Morley and Outwood? What was that question?
Yes, she's quite right to raise the issue.
She's quite right to raise Boris's question.
And how to tackle them. And particularly with the threat of new variants, which he rightly raises, and that's why.
Oh, there's a top-notch flag shagger incoming.
Border regime, but also a program as we go forward for surge testing, door-to-door testing, to ensure that when there is a local outbreak, we keep it local and keep it under control, as we're trying to do at the moment, as she knows. With the
Keep
South
outbreaks
African
local. Yeah, that's kind of how you deal with this shit.
With
Skye and
members of the
Lochaber,
SNP
you
in
fucking.
Blackburn.
I can't believe he can't say Lochaber.
Thank you,
what the
Mr.
hell?
Speaker. Next week's budget gives the opportunity to tackle.
Here's our pink
the
friend,
financial costs
Ian
of
Black.
this pandemic.
Ian Blackford.
The UK has suffered its worst recession in 300 years. We now need a government that understands the scale of this crisis.
I'm just going to get the same question from him. Like, I am getting.
Maximum investment to recover.
Yeah, exactly.
Are threatening us.
I've got two things to say about Ian Blackford. One, get a fucking filter. Like SK said, I'm just copying what you said directly. Get a fucking filter. B, get some new fucking questions. He's asked the same questions every week for the last 7 weeks. Like, literally, I am bored hearing him say the same shit every week.
To a major fiscal stimulus.
Yeah, Angus was much better.
5% of GDP, or will he threaten the recovery and leave millions of people worse off?
He always just asks the same fucking shit.
I'm proud, Mr. Speaker, of the massive investments that the.
It's like, that question is just like, oh, tell us how you're going to screw millions of people over again. Every single time.
The huge
a Ramstein fan, no way. Is it Steen or Stein? Ramstein. Du hast it. I don't know, that's the only word I can sing.
Some of the failures in education policy.
That was singing.
In Scotland, the failures in their criminal justice policy and fighting crime. And I think
they've got one of the most metal names in the world of music, isn't it? Rammstein.
Let's talk about a referendum, Mr. Speaker, which is his agenda, and more talk about the real issues facing our country.
Oh yeah, referendum. Let's get Scotland the fuck out of the UK, because it's a toxic
Mr.
mess.
Speaker. The Prime Minister's boasting, but the cold, hard reality is that the United Kingdom has suffered the worst slump of any major economy, and 120,000 people have lost their lives.
His audio resolution just kicked in there. I hate that.
Coronavirus has exposed the deep inequalities under this broken Westminister
This
system.
question has exposed how badly Ian Blackford reads from the screen. It's like me doing a wrestling review.
UK unemployment is soaring. In contrast, in the United States, President Biden understands what is needed.
Fuck off, man.
What? $1.9
What?
trillion stimulus.
I cannot believe that he's just like, oh, we need to look at the USA. Sorry, have you seen how bad that America is doing just now? What the
to
fuck?
Restart and renew the American economy. Prime Minister, will your government follow the example of the US and boost the economy like Biden? Or is the
Oh, what a dick. What a dick. I can't, yeah, SK, I'm the fucking same.
Tory austerity?
Like, sorry, like,
Prime Minister.
the only thing people should be copying from the Americas is the stimulus checks. That's it. Where's our fucking stimulus checks? 2 utterly wasted questions from Blackford this week. -5 fucking stars. That was just a... What was the point of those questions?
£40 billion in infrastructure alone throughout the UK. A massive programme to get our country rebuilt. And,
I'm a
restarted.
USK. That was a
And I think
fucking
that is what
terrible.
people,
That was an
would like to
absolutely
focus on,
shit
rather than, his
performance
agenda,
from Blackford.
to talk about our broken policy.
I'm normally Blackford's top fucking cheerleader on this stream. You can watch any of them. I'm normally all about the Ian Blackford, but today, that was just fucking terrible. That was terrible.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, knows how
My right honourable friend, the Prime Minister.
Southport and Manchester Piccadilly is for my
Damien Moore, by the way.
those living in the wider Lancashire area. All of the changes
Someone's left a mic open.
Rail Recovery Task Force are,
And it is their feed that's doing it, not me.
and take our levelling up agenda.
Can you hear that tone?
Will my right honourable
That is
friend
them. That's the House of the Commons feed.
changes to these proposals so that we can keep
Maybe if I take the bass out, we'll get rid of it.
With the service that they've come to rely on and which is vital for their economy.
Yeah, that kind of takes it out.
Prime Minister.
I
That's gone.
congratulate my honourable friend for his campaign for better local transport, and we are investing massively in rail connectivity in his area, in local bus routes, and the particular line that he advocates, I know, is one of great interest to my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Transport, and I will make sure that he has a chance to discuss it personally with
Bus
him.
lines.
Let's go across to Ed Davey.
Ed Davey, oh, this should be good.
Can I start by thanking the government for their change of policy announced today on the vaccination
Wait,
priority
nothing of
for
note has
people
happened, but I
with
have been
learning
very, very
disabilities?
angry. So
Despite the
if you
Prime
want to
Minister's
watch
rather
something
more
funny,
equivocal
watch this in
answer to
video
me
on
this.
demand, because I'm very, gesticulating wildly, as Berko would say.
China live in fear under a cruel regime.
Oh, genocide question.
The BBC, international media,
The
and human rights
BBC
NGOs
said
are
it.
all reporting
Gah.
on forced labour camps, women being raped and sterilised.
Yeah, that's
families
not
being
good.
separated.
That is not good at all.
This is a genocide happening in front of our eyes. So does the Prime Minister agree with me that unless China ends this genocide, Britain and Team GB should boycott the Winter Olympics in Beijing next year?
So, that question was going really good at the start of it. I thought they were going to try and push Boris Johnson into into stating that the British government think China are acting in a way that is genocide. Now, I've said this before in a stream. I think it's going to be very, very hard to get Boris Johnson and the government to put in writing and to state in the House of Commons that China are committing a genocide, because as soon as it's on Hansard, as soon as that's in the record, it can be used against them, and then that is the drums of war. That is the starts of war. People will be like, well, it's on record, they've done a genocide, why are we not acting? We've stopped genocide before. It's a really sticky bit. When you start using the term genocide, specifically genocide, it is a really sticky wicket. So government's going to avoid that. Now, that last question, though, it wasn't about genocide. It was going to be about genocide, but he's like, oh yeah, we're going to boycott the Olympics. Now, wait, I thought the Olympics were in Japan, or the Winter Olympics in China. Okay.
Prime Minister.
Are they going to? They're not going to boycott the Olympics. It's ridiculous to even think that.
Absolutely right to highlight the appalling campaign against
He's not going to say genocide, though.
in Xinjiang, and that's why the Foreign Secretary, my Honourable Foreign Secretary, has set out the policies that he has, the package of measures to ensure that no British companies are complicit in or profiting from violations. We're leading international action in the UN to hold China to account, and we'll continue to work with the US, friends and partners around the world to do just that. He raises a point about a sporting boycott. We're not normally in favour.
He won't even say the Olympics. Oh my God.
Country, Mr. Speaker, and that's been the long-standing position of this government.
Very interesting answer there. Now, as fully expected, he did not use the term genocide. That is not getting used by Boris Johnson, not at this stage. They will not use the term genocide until they want to go to war, which is not going to happen, because that's like World War III territory. It's also really interesting that he refused to do that, and he's like, he didn't even say the term Olympics. That in itself is interesting. He
Sent to North Cumbria with Dr.
Sporting event.
Dr. Hudson.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
A Tory doctor.
Penrith and the border struggles with poor broadband and phone signal connectivity, with download speeds around 56% of the UK average. Many of my constituents have been quoted large and unfeasible sums for new cables to be installed.
Okay, I need to know what his stance on Jeremy Corbyn's free fucking internet was. One moment, please. What's his name again? Let me see his name. Dr. Neil Hudson.
Installed, which is often their only option to improve coverage. I welcome the potential of the shared rural network, the gigabit voucher scheme, and the universal service obligation to help, But what reassurance can my right honourable friend give my constituents that government is striving to address these broadband and phone signal not spots in rural Cumbria?
Prime Minister.
I thank my honourable...
It's just fucking hilarious that you've got Tories complaining about poor internet speeds, poor broadband speeds, poor connectivity, when the government, like the Labour Party, was literally saying that they would make this in law and give everyone this. Fucking ridiculous.
Friend, and all he does to campaign for the hardest to reach areas in rural Cumbria. And I know that we're doing all we can because I raise it virtually every day, and we are rolling it out as fast as we can.
What a cock! So he raises the problem at internet every day, but they won't just give people free internet. They won't install a decent internet system. He'll just talk about it every day. Typical Boris Johnson. He'll talk about shit. He's one of those people that talk a big game, but he fucking can't do it. He can't deliver.
Agreement and a voucher scheme to target predominantly rural areas, but we are intending to get everything we can possibly done in the next 5 years.
5 years.
No to Dame Diana Johnson. Dame Diana.
Dame Diana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the 40% cut to transport for the North's budget part of the Prime Minister's plans for levelling up the North?
Hey, that was a good question.
There's been no such cut, Mr. Speaker, and we intend to invest massively in...
So... He just got asked directly about a cut to transport funding, and he's just like, there is no cut. Well, there actually is. Like, why did you ask the question?
In railways in the north and across the entire country.
Can you believe that this is the leader of the UK? He just so a politician just asked, why is there cuts to transport funding? And in reply, the Prime Minister just lies and says, well, there's no cuts, we're going to put more money into it. This is his answer to everything. He just if he says there's a lack of money, he'll just be like, oh, that's not true. We're putting funding into that. Then you've got to ask yourself, well, if it's not true, why did you then say you're putting funding into it? If it wasn't true, then the funding would not need to be put into it, Boris. Think about it, you clown. So, we've only got a few minutes left, so let's get through this. Suzanne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Flag Sharker Incorporated. Flag. Oh my god. She's got a flag on a bowler hat. What a twat.
For a great takeaway service. To celebrate this entrepreneurial spirit, I am launching a favourite takeaway competition in my constituency today. Will the Prime Minister join me in launching this competition and also in a takeaway from the winning entry when he's next in wonderful Stourbridge?
Is this a fucking joke? Sorry, did she just used a Prime Minister's question to launch her shitty takeaway competition and ask the Prime Minister if he'd take part?
The Stourbridge Dasher.
You know for a fact that
yes, I congratulate
even the fucking speaker's laughing. Our politics is a fucking joke. You just know that she emailed Boris Johnson if she could do this. Boris is like, oh, you know what? I don't give a fuck about politics anyway. So no doubt, just ask it as a question. What the fuck? I cannot believe that. That has got to be the most ridiculous Prime Minister's question I have ever fucking heard.
Takeaways in Stourbridge. I'm not sure it'd be environmentally friendly for me to order a takeaway from Stourbridge.
Oh, fuck off.
In Westminster, but I thank her very much for her initiative, and I look forward to...
He's thanking her. She should be fucking suspended from the party for that. She just wasted a Prime Minister's question to promote a fucking competition. Sorry. Is this a episode of Smash Hits magazine? What the fuck is this? What is going on? This has been the most anger-inducing episode of Prime Minister's questions I have ever fucking watched. What the fuck?
In her constituency as soon as possible.
He should be sacking her for that. What the fuck?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, she should lose her seat. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Fucking Blue Wes of the fucking Tory party.
Children from the pandemic.
Wanker.
One of the biggest challenges facing our country. But we went into this pandemic with rising child poverty, a widening attainment gap, and school funding
Mick Wes.
in real terms.
Prick Wes.
So given that, does the Prime Minister really believe that the 43 pence per pupil per day announced today really cuts it? And if he does, would he really be happy to see that amount spent on his own children?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I
I mean, I doubt Boris cares about his own children, to be fair.
Disagree with what he's just said about the spending that was going on even before the pandemic. We were increasing funding for
lies. Here we go with the
£4,000.
Here we go with the lies. This is exactly what happened in the question a few questions ago. Whenever he is confronted with what his government has done to cut funding from people, he will just lie. He will say, that cut you're talking about, that gap of money you're talking about, that doesn't exist in any way. We're going to put more funding into it. This is his stock answer for that. This is like in wrestling, right? In wrestling, your wrestlers will get a thing. Obviously, wrestlers get hurt. They've got to be like, oh, my hand, when their hand's not really hurt. It's called selling, right? But what you'll find is, like, most wrestlers have got a generic sell. So if they just need to look beat up, they'll maybe hold their head, like, to, like, just generically sell, I'm injured. This is Boris's equivalent of holding his head and going, I'm injured, to sell that he's injured. This is his stock reply to anything that involves a lack of funding. He will lie. He will say, sorry, that lack of funding doesn't exist. And then he will then say, it doesn't exist in any way. We're giving you more funding. Every fucking time.
5,000 for secondary school pupils, putting up
we know.
Starting salary.
The thing is, we know this gap of funding was there. We know it. It's on record. Kids are going hungry. It is not. We're not making this up. Like, we can see it in front of our eyes. It's on TV every day.
No, he's wrong. They amount to £2 billion.
And the problem is, when people like Wes the Shill Streeton are arguing this case, it just devalues it because they've already, like, it annoys me. Like, people like Wes Streeton with this sort of arguments, right? Fucking annoys me. The argument he made was totally fair, totally just. It's something we should all get behind. But do I, in my heart, believe that Wes Streeton cares about this topic? No. Do I fuck? Because we have seen for the last 2-3 years that Wes Streeton will gladly throw his principles in the bin if it means attacking someone in a political sense. I cannot trust people like Wes Streeton. They do not have our interests at heart. Their interests are in winning rhetorical battles in this green-seated fucking palace. That's it. They don't care about truth or getting things right. They just care about winning arguments.
And the party opposite.
Rob Roberts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Janine Maguire in my constituency, who is a mother of 3, suffered a very
Rob Roberts here.
An immediate cardiac arrest, which
a Tory. Can you believe it?
In February 2000. 20 years later, in August of last year, one of her daughters, Cara, suffered, strangely, the same fate with an unexpected cardiac arrest. Fortunately, her friend Michael was with her, who was a former soldier and thus trained in first aid and life saving.
I'll get to the question,
Despite
man.
her heart stopping for 20 minutes, he managed to save her life.
20 minutes? What?
In
Is that
September
even
of last year,
possible?
the UK government made it mandatory for
Wait,
CPR,
what?
skills to be...
That person's heart stopped for 20 minutes and the person saved their life. How the fuck is that possible? How? I thought your brain dies after like 7 minutes. Like, what the fuck? 20 minutes with no heartbeat? I need to fact check this. Like, what the fuck, man?
Taught in secondary schools, but despite a campaign and a letter from all of my Welsh Conservative colleagues, the Education Minister in Wales has declined to do so. Will my right honourable friend throw the weight of his office behind my campaign to have CPR skills taught in Wales so that the Maguire family and those like them no longer have to...
I mean, are the government going to give the money to the Welsh government to train this up?
The sympathies of the whole House will be with my honourable friend's constituent, a family and friends. And I agree with him very much about the importance of learning CPR, and that's why we introduced it into the curriculum for all state-funded schools in England. It is, of course,
why didn't you do it for the whole country?
Issue, and I share his urgency that it also should be adopted in Wales as well.
Let's head to Lancashire with Rosie Cooper.
Rosie Cooper. Hello, Rosie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Much focus of late has been on children returning safely to school. In my constituency, successive cohorts of pupils have had to wade through overflowing drains to get into school and are routinely evacuated from flooded classrooms.
I mean, that's because there's flooding at the moment.
That takes a huge toll on the quality of their learning.
I mean, there's been really bad weather at the moment.
Again, with Lancashire County Council and the head teacher of Town Green Primary School, to ensure that no child in West Lancashire loses a vital day of education, especially to flooding-related issues.
Right. I mean, I understand what she just said. I side with her question, but it's just fucking stupid. Like, she's just asked the Prime Minister to basically, like, these schools are not being closed. They're being closed because they're flooded, right? What does she want the Prime Minister to do here? Build a new school that is impervious to flooding, or does she want him to somehow redirect rivers away from her areas of Lancashire to stop them being flooded? I understand what she's saying there. She makes a wise point. But the question, like, has she thought about what the answers are to her question there? Like, as powerful as the Prime Minister of the UK is, I don't think they can hold back rivers. You know what I mean? And any flood defence, yeah, I mean, it could be flood defences. I can actually deal with that. But then, would she not have been better just hammering the point home that, Boris, where's the flood defences we've been promised for years? Instead of, like, I just think that the way she framed that question there was just all backwards. I just didn't like the framing of it. I
thank her very much.
I sympathise. Flood defences in the UK is just fucking terrible. Like, if you want to see how bad flood defences are around the UK, just go walking around the countryside and you'll see that there's barely anything happening. It doesn't surprise me that places get flooded at all. But yeah,
I know that the Environment Agency continues to work.
For the last 20 years, all the British government has done is poke fingers in dikes, stop leaks like that. They don't do anything proper. Like the answer to Rosie Cooper's problem is like SK says in the chat, proper flood defences, proper stuff like that. But framing it in a way that's like, oh, can you make sure that kids don't go to school when the school's flooded? You could argue that the remote schooling systems should be in place for this already, but I don't think you can stop. Like, I don't know. I just don't like the way that question was asked.
With the county council.
Yeah, you're right. The real solution is to not live on fucking floodplains.
The DEFRA minister has written to her.
That is the biggest fucking stupid.
Giles Watling. Giles.
Watling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, my right honourable friend will know that pubs have been closing all over Britain for decades now, tearing the hearts out of communities.
Oh man, this is a proper Tory, isn't it?
Has made things even worse. But part of the problem is undercutting by cheap supermarket booze.
What?
But now we're out of the EU. Surely we can do as we please with beer duty. Differentiation in favour of on sales could deliver great benefits to pubs in communities like Clacton at nil cost.
Fuck your pubs, mate.
Will my right honourable friend commit ministers to look at this differentiation proposal?
Wow, I just need to stop for a second there. How dare people that can't afford to go to pubs get drink at a slightly lower rate? What the fuck, man? Yeah, and you're right, it has nothing to do with the EU either. It's not... Oh... I just need to stop for a second, man. That one really fucking annoyed me. Like, what the hell is he on? There's so much conflation with bullshit and hyper-reality in that question that...
Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker, he makes an extremely good point.
He didn't make an extremely good point. Like, for one, the main point is that people should be charged more for alcohol when they're buying it in the fucking shops when we already pay over the fucking odds for everything in this country. And then they blame it on the EU. It's got nothing to do with the EU. Nothing at all. Nothing in the slightest.
Which I'm sure will be
my God.
interest around the
How many
the
questions have we got left? I need to fucking get off of this shit. Giles Waterloo wrote 4 questions left. Labour Tory, SNP Tory. Watch them sound all like fucking Tories. Let's head north.
Mr. Speaker, I was disappointed that the Prime Minister didn't accept my offer to meet with him when he recently visited my constituency's wonderful Fujifilm vaccine complex in Billingham to celebrate our local success story. I could have taken him to nearby Billingham Food Bank where he would have learned that over a third of the children in my constituency...
I mean, he would have also been breaking the fucking law. He shouldn't be travelling from place to place, you spanner.
...live in poverty, and yet 2 in 5 of those same children are still not entitled to free school meals because the threshold is so low. Will the Prime Minister urgently address this scandal, take long-term action on...
So this is a free school meals question. Why he started it by saying the Prime Minister could go on a trip to his constituency when we know he shouldn't be travelling is another question entirely. But that said, that was the question. Free school meals. What is Boris going to do?
Poverty.
Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I certainly am proud of what universal credit is. It's odd to be attacked by a Labour member over universal credit when it's his party's policy.
Right, for one, he did not attack you. He did not attack universal credit in the slightest. He said that people aren't getting access to free school meals because the level is so fucking low. And then he's away.
To abolish.
Yeah, and then he just says, oh, it's Labour's policy to abolish universal credit. Yeah, abolish universal credit and replace it with fair benefits and universal basic fucking income. You disingenuous clown.
That benefit. But the best thing we can do for families
is give them their free school meals.
In Billingham is ensure that there are very good jobs, and it was wonderful to see what's happening in...
It's not... There's no jobs. The UK is now in the biggest recession it's probably ever seen. There is no fucking jobs for these people.
In Teesside, under the leadership of Mayor Ben Houchen, the investment that is going in by Fujifilm and others...
Fuck Fujifilm. What are they doing to that? Like, seriously, what are they doing for them? Nothing.
That is the route out.
Sorry, but why, if Fujifilm's such a big influence in that area, why the fuck is Fujifilm not giving the kids in that area free school dinners? Sorry, can we not get some social responsibility from these companies that are making billions from the areas? So you've got a company like Fujifilm, who's literally making hundreds of billions from the Stockton North area, yet their politician is here asking government for it. Sorry. Where's Fujifilm's place in all this? We're celebrating Fujifilm at the start of the question, but at the end of the question, we're not asking how this billion-dollar corporation can help the people in the area it stays. This is what's wrong with this fucking country.
Of poverty, it's fantastic education and top-quality jobs, and that's what this government aims to deliver.
Sent to the southwest with Jack Lepresti.
Jack Lepresti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Guess what party?
My honourable friend will
well, you can see there.
Visit in 2019 that the Port of Bristol will make an excellent location for a Great Western Freeport. And the West of England...
What is that picture behind him? What is that? And why does it look like he stays in that old folks' home? Like, what is that painting? Please don't tell me that's Captain Tom. If that is a Captain Tom painting, I am going to run through my living room window. Like, what the fuck?
And also agree with me that with house prices in the West of England sitting at...
it's an agree with me question. This is a Boris question.
9 times average earnings. We need a home building revolution to provide much more affordable housing for our...
I see he's got the problem I have where the camera is on top of the monitor and it wobbles. Although I'd like to know why. See, it annoys me when politicians can't frame themselves in the question. Like Rosie Cooper is always like this. You know what I mean? She's always like this at the top of the screen. Blackford gets his positioning right, but his filter is always wrong. This guy's like that. He's like this. Can the Prime Minister please tell me? It's like, I don't know. Like, can these fuckers just sit on a chair, right? Now, is it too much to ask to look at yourself on a screen and say, okay, I'm sitting on a chair, right?
My honourable friend is absolutely right.
Of course he's absolutely right. It was your question, you blonde-haired twat.
The country, because you sometimes hear that, oh, this is a problem just mainly
if one video gets me banned off of Twitch, it's probably going to be this one. I have been
and I want to
so annoyed.
By the way, Tim Bowles for what he's done, the mayor for the West of England, or everything that he has.
Tim Bowles, fuck Tim Bowles.
Now, as he stands down, and we intend to help build on his legacy with a massive home building programme and home ownership programme. Mr. Speaker, across the country.
Just build homes.
Let's head to Cumbernauld with Stuart.
Just to quickly interject here, what needs to happen is a mass programme of building council, local government houses, like they did after the Second World War. Then you take back in the policy where people can buy the house if they've stayed in it for 5 years. Then with the money you make from the selling of the houses and the rent, you buy more fucking houses. You build more. This is how the system was always supposed to have worked, but how the Tory party, under Margaret Thatcher, screwed the pooch, because instead of putting the money from the sale of council houses to build it more, they just fucking squandered it. That is just
Stuart C.
It just blows me away every time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Stuart
Before
C.
the budget
MacDonald.
is finalised, could the Prime Minister ensure that his Chancellor reads the Trussell Trust's new report restitution
Come on, mate.
for keeping the Universal Credit lifeline? His government has been incredibly generous to pals with PPE contracts, so surely, instead of cutting employment-related benefits to the lowest real terms level in 30 years, he must now afford some basic dignity to 6 million people on universal credit
Yeah.
and make the uplift permanent.
It's not just those on universal credit, and there's fucking millions of people that are not being allowed universal credit that are in even worse problems than the people with universal credit. It's like it goes so much deeper, and questions like this, they just bounce off the surface because they're just choosing one group of poor people over another group of poor people. There are millions of people that are also getting totally ignored by this, that are getting no help.
Prime Minister.
And
Mr. Speaker,
they're
we
all
will
ignoring
continue
it.
to,
Doesn't matter if they're SNP,
look after
Labour,
people
Tory, what,
throughout this
they're
pandemic,
all
and
ignoring it.
beyond. And the best thing we can do across the whole of the country is
They're happy to know that there's a group of poor people getting no help because they have the rhetorical warm feeling because they are helping another group of poor people to give them 20 quid a fucking week. Assholes.
to bounce our economy back as fast
Thankfully,
as we
we only have
get
one
people
question
into
left.
high
Christian
quality
Wakeford.
jobs. As I said to the previous member, that is the agenda of this government.
Final question, Christian.
Thank fuck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start by thanking my right honourable friend, the Education Secretary, for his announcement of a new high school for Redcliffe on the back of my campaign. This new high school will be the kickstart for regeneration that the town is desperately in need of. The towns like Redcliffe and Prestwich, which haven't received...
Why is Gavin Williamson leading any sort of regeneration? He's an Education Secretary and he's a shit one at that.
Towns fund all future high street funding. Can my right honourable friend advise what assistance this levelling up government can provide to make sure these towns aren't forgotten?
Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I congratulate my honourable friend for his successful campaign to get a new high school. Is absolutely vital. The best place for kids is in schools. I hope we'll hear from the Labour Party very shortly.
So he congratulates him for I don't even know what the answer was.
We are investing in his area, Mr. Speaker, to the tune of £660 million and more through the Local Growth Fund, £54 million through the Getting Building Fund, and of course also in the transport network. And next week the whole House will be hearing even more about what we propose to do to steer a path cautiously but irreversibly, Mr. Speaker, out of this pandemic.
Irreversibly, my arse.
To recover and to build back better across the whole of the United Kingdom.
And that is the end of this week's Prime Minister's questions. Thank fuck it's over. So I went a bit longer than I thought we were going to go. Next week we won't pause as much, and hopefully I'm in a better mood next week. Because today I was just in a bad mood going into this, and the questions just made me even worse. Like nothing today made me happy. I don't think there was one good question asked today, right? Rosie Cooper came closest to asking a good question, but even then, the way she asked it was just fucking ridiculous. It was fucking ridiculous. And yeah, as SK says, once lockdown has eased, he may be returning to the show, which will be good. We need him back. Things like this help. You know what I mean? It's all very well people looking at my beautiful face, but we really need Sinan's beautiful hair on stream. That is what attracts the viewers to Prime Minister's questions. It's not Boris. It's not my beautiful complexion. It's Sinan and his beautiful, beautiful hair. That is me for today. I'll be doing AEW Dark tomorrow, I think, because it's 2 hours long and I don't have time today. Have a great day with whatever you're doing. Share my stuff out because it means a lot to me. Every share really makes me feel happy, and I really need that just now. So whatever you're doing today, just have a really good day. Try and stay positive. Try and be happy. And if you can't be happy, do something to make someone else happy, because sometimes that's just the best thing you can do. Toodle pip, everyone.